had told me about this brick wall. I got dressed tonight. This looks a whole lot wackier than it did when I was at home. I feel like I need a rubber chicken. I'm gonna do this also. There we go. Okay, hi everybody. I don't know about you, but I try to be a good person. My parents are good people. But I have had, when I was younger, I had a shitty streak when I was a child. I was just real shitty a lot of the time. I was one of the kids who had to get a note at the end of every day of second grade saying how my behavior had been. There was a smiley face and a frowny face, and I had to, my teacher would circle one, and then my parents would have to sign it and bring it back the next day. Usually, she would just make another face in between with a straight line for a mouth. And then like a long explanation of what that day had entailed. But at least I wasn't one of those kids who had the island desks. They were in the same class. There were the other two kids who had to have the notes, had desks outside of where everybody else was sitting because they were that disruptive. I was not one of those, so I barely got away with that. There was a boy and a girl who were at the island desks. One of them once followed me to the bathroom. I had pissed her off. She followed me to the bathroom, and while I was peeing, she like Spider-Man'd up the stall next to me and leaned over and was like yelling and spitting on my head while I was peeing. So that was not the level of disruption that I was causing, but it was fun. We were friends. We made up. But I did, when I was like four-ish, have a hitting problem. I didn't hit other kids. I wasn't one of like those biters. But I did hit my parents whenever they would do something that I didn't agree with. Like, gotta go to bed now, we told you 5 times, smack. No more cookies, you have to have some of your real food before you have any more cookies, smack. That kind of thing. And their punishment for me, because they were hippies, and this was the time when you were, the preferred parenting for the time was just telling kids that they were great all the time, which it's a wonder that any of us did anything at all. Right? It's like, yes, my kids suck, they suck me. The way that they dealt with that, I mean, in a lot of cultures, including, like modern times, people would just, if your kid slaps you, you would just slap them back and that would be the end of it. One time, just bam, shut up at the end. Not my parents. They did spank me though. Their solution to this problem was to take away my television for 3 days, which was a big deal for me because I only got a half hour of TV a day anyway, and it had to be educational. And a half hour of TV isn't even enough to watch all of Sesame Street, for those of you who remember. So that's totally unfair. I would have to go to my friend's house to find out what happened at the end of the episode. Cliffhangers. What else starts with B? At one point I had racked up like a month and a half of no television, which is a lot of 3 days worth at 4 years old, but it worked. They did occasionally spank me, which was only really when I needed to just snap out of it, just get black in the eyes and go into a rage like little kids do before they're sentient and understand that other people are in the world. And it wasn't a big deal, it was just kind of grab me by the wrist, put me over the knee, slap, 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 and I would kind of come back to reality and then be really pissed about that injustice. But they didn't want to. This was these hippies conflicted about their past, and my dad was a conscientious objector, and he was a super gentle, kind, what he is. What am I talking about? He's still alive. Father, God rest his soul. Sorry, Dad. He is a wonderful person. And he always worked blue-collar jobs my whole life, and so he was big and strong and around macho guys all the time. And he is tall, still, no longer. He's 6'4", and therefore when he was working on these blue-collar jobs, other men that he would go out drinking with would pick on him. They would specifically find the biggest guy in the room to go pick a fight with. He fished crab in Alaska for a while, which, as seen on TV, is one of the most dangerous jobs that you can have. if not the most dangerous, and partially because these guys would just be like on drugs all the time. This is not something they show you on the show. They would, they go ashore and get paid a bunch of money, and so they just party it out and spend it all on drugs, and then they'll even be on the drugs on the ship because they're working long hours, 22 hours on, 2 hours off, and so they're on coke that whole time, and then to like sleep during the 2 hours they're on heroin. And not my dad though. He's just like this nice guy, who's like drinking his beer at the bar. And so he had a trick to deal with guys who would try and pick fights with him, which he actually learned from his father, who was a merchant marine, and also who never fought anybody, and was also a big strapping guy. He would, he could kind of scope out around the bar people who would be gearing up to fight with him. Like he would kind of see, maybe they were talking to their friends, maybe they were talking to themselves. They would be like working it up, I'm talking some shit to themselves. And then they would, drink the last of their whiskey, stand up, come on over to him, and kind of hit him in the shoulder and say, "Hey, buddy." And his tactic was always to just pretend that he hadn't heard them. So it was like, "Hey, buddy." "Oh, hey, how's it going?" And then they're just like, "Fine." You can't fight with somebody like that. Like, now that you've greeted me, I'm gonna punch you in the face. No. So that worked. He has to date, because he's still alive, never gotten in a fight. And this is the kind of man that was forced to raise me. So one day, this was, I think I was about 7 when this happened. He's looking after me. We've been playing all day, it's great. Playing Lincoln Logs and whatever. He goes to take a nap on the couch, as dads are wont to do. And so I'm entertaining myself, and I find one of my parents' books that is, I don't remember exactly what it was, like a compilation of old comic strips. And, from like the mid 20th century, so like 30s to 60s, there were a lot of, like the theme was often shenanigans, like kids who were just running the streets with their like scrappy dog, getting into shenanigans with each other, and like, adults hated them. And so this was one such strip, and he's just gotten, the protagonist, don't remember exactly what it was, but I think, a Newsies cap. The protagonist has just gotten in trouble with a quintessential teacher who's wearing like a graduation robe and a graduation hat, and has like, looks all the time for no reason. And he's bringing this kid out, and he reaches up in the air, and you see his buddy just puts him over his knee, reaches up in the air, and then the next panel is just like swack or whatever, and it's red paint lines, and then in the next panel it's the teacher and his hand is huge and red, and there's like throbbing lines, and he's like, ouch! And then the next panel you see that the kid has like a book in the back of his pants, like, haha, I fooled you, and he says something quippy like, "That's what I call hitting the box," or whatever. I see this and I'm like, that is the best thing I've ever seen in my life. That's my jam. I gotta do it immediately because I'm, 7 and I have no self-control. I can't wait. Which means that I have to manufacture a situation in which I deserve to be spanked. So my dad is sleeping, which is great for me because nothing is worse than being woken up when you aren't expecting to. And my first tactic is to go and just pull all the pots and pans out of the cupboard and just like smack them together and like kick them around the kitchen, just make a bunch of noise. He wakes up and he's like, whoa, 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 starting to come into the kitchen. I duck past him into the living room and then just pull all the games out that we've just been playing, which I feel like now I think that I thought that it would be extra insulting because we were previously having fun with them, but I can't say that that's what I was thinking at the time. But they were noisy things, checkers and Lincoln Logs and Legos and stuff, and I'm just like spreading them all over the place and like, kicking and looking at him. And at this point, like, you can see the gears turning. Like, what is happening to my child? She's lost her mind. Something happened, something like flew in and bit her while I was sleeping. This is some sort of, and so I'm kicking things around. And he starts to get stern. Okay, this is gonna happen, and my tactic is that now I duck under the chair where his guitar is leaned up against the wall. And he's like, okay, you better get out here, there's gonna be trouble, I'm gonna count to 3, get out here before then, or there's gonna be trouble. 1, and so my plan is, if you hit the guitar and strum the strings at the same time, it sounds like you're really fucking with it, but you're not, and it's fine. So 2, 3, blam, and I just fuck with his guitar, and that's it. He pulls the chair out of the way, and I look at him and smack him in the pants, and then run away. Take off from my room. And I can hear behind me that he's starting to get, like, there's a moment of silence, and that's how you know that my dad's really pissed off, because he gets silent, and his eyes get big, and then he, like, you know, he's really tall, so he starts, like, loping towards you slowly, and boom, boom, now you're gonna pay. And I get in my room, and I slam the door, and I look around, and I realize this time I haven't, in my new plan, I haven't set aside a book for the plan. And all, you know, I'm a kid, and all my books are kids' books. I should have grabbed one of my parents' books, which would fit more readily into my little 6-year-old, 7-year-old butt pants area. There's no time for that, so I just grabbed the thickest book that I could find. Butt it, pull my shirt over, lean up against the wall. I can hear him coming. Why are you doing this? Lean up against the wall, and I'm like smiling so hard, so when he comes in, I just, in order to like cover the smile, I just yell, "You put hair for your face, button!" Hammer it home. Does it. Pulls me over his knee. And then I just hear, what? And then, now he understands. Just wanted to make this joke. So bad. So I'm so proud. Still does it, because I still deserve it. Hits the book. No pain reaction. You might want a bigger book next time. Thank you.